Hi, I'm Holly Sizemore, Chief Mission Officer for Best Friends Animal Society, and this is Rose, my co-host of Saving America's Pets. You've heard of winter, spring, summer, and fall season, but have you heard about kitten season? Coming up, we'll talk about why kitten season isn't just about cute, cuddly kittens. It's about saving lives. Two cats are killed in shelters for every one dog, even though dogs make up 5% more of the animals that come into shelters. In a previous episode, we discussed what you should do if you find kittens outdoors. If you haven't watched it yet, please do. We will leave a link to that video in the description. My guests today are leaders in implementing cat life-saving programs all around the country. Shelters that have engaged with Best Friends on Cat Life-Saving Program improved their cat life-saving by 73% in 2020, compared to a 33% improvement in cat life-saving for shelters that did not engage with Best Friends. So we know how to save cats. And Leah Long and Jen Adkins, National Embed Program Specialists for Best Friends, are two key women responsible for this success, as they and their colleagues expertly focus on helping shelters save more cats faster all across the country. Hey Leah, Jen, thank you so much for being here. Jen, how does kitten season affect our shelter colleagues?
So kitten season really affects our shelters by kind of inundating our shelters with lots of kittens coming into the shelter. So a lot of shelters feel very overwhelmed trying to scramble and find resources, find fosters, find adoption services for the kittens that are coming into the shelter.
What is this kitten season looking like so far?
I think we are seeing kind of two different sides to kitten season, depending on the programming that is being done in shelters. So we have some shelters that are doing kitten intake prevention and really proactively preventing kittens from entering the shelter by trying to make the finders of these kittens become fosters and keep them out of the shelter system entirely. So they're actually not being inundated with kittens. And then we have the classic where it's raining kittens, there's kittens everywhere. That, again, that scramble and that kind of overwhelming feeling.
Leah, what are you seeing in terms of some of the best cat programs out there right now to combat kitten season?
So I think some of the best programs that we see obviously have that kitten intake diversion piece to it. So trying to keep the kittens outside with mom, where a lot of times they are going to be the safest. And also, of course, having that foster piece involved as well. So trying to turn those finders into fosters. A really great example that I'd like to talk about who does this incredibly well is Dallas Animal Services. So Dallas Animal Services identified a need in their data. They saw that the most at-risk population was kittens under 35 days. So while they already had a nursery program in place, they knew that they needed to do something else and add to that. And so they did this by increasing their support for their local transfer partners and diverting kitten intake. And so one of the most important pieces to the programming that they're doing is that they're making information accessible. A lot of times when people are bringing kids into the shelter, it's because they don't know what's best for those kittens, and that leaving them with mom is what's going to result in that positive outcome that we all want. So they have a incredibly detailed web page with a assessment guide that walks you through step by step. Okay, if the kitten is this age and it's healthy, we should be doing this. And by having all this information, the public is better equipped to make the decisions that are going to be best for the cats. They also added a text line in which people can text kitten to a number, and it helps walk them through that same process. And they just implemented that in March. Already 75 people have texted kitten to the line. So that just shows the more information you arm the public with, the less kittens you have coming in and the safer for kittens.
Jen, do you find that people will turn from a finder into a foster? Are they excited about it? Are they nervous about it?
I think a little bit of all of the above. But yes, what we're seeing is that people, once they're given the resources and the information that they need in order to become foster parents to these kittens, they are willing to take on the challenge. So if they're given the tools that they need, Kitten kits can be a really great source of getting that, all that stuff that they need right then and there to send home with them. And once they do it once, sometimes they come back for more, which is really great too. One place we're seeing this is in West Valley, at West Valley Humane Society in Caldwell, Idaho. They implemented a kitten intake prevention program, which they call KIPP. So West Valley's development director, Brittany Sundell, said that about 90% of the people that bring kittens in leave as foster parents as a result of their kitten intake prevention program.
The West Valley example is such a good one because 5 years ago, many of us working in the shelter industry would have just simply taken those kittens in. They would have been at risk of getting sick. The shelter staff wouldn't have had the bandwidth to help them. And sadly, many of them would have died. And so to see this transformation of how we are collaborating direct with the community is really powerful. Jen, how are you seeing that in some of the programs that you work with?
I think really emphasizing the community's response and their collaboration with their shelters has been a tremendous step forward in our movement. I think we have really started to foster that relationship between the people in our community and the animals in our community, and really seeing that when we connect with the humans, we are directly helping the animals. So really, by being transparent with our communities as coming from the shelter about what our needs are, as well as our successes. So, a lot of times we were, like you said, 5 years ago, we were hesitant to share our struggles and share the things that we needed from our community because we wanted to just share the positive outcomes and the success stories. But really, by sharing our struggles and by letting the public know what they can do to help, we have been able to help more animals as a result.
Leah, help us understand, why is it bad to have kittens in a shelter setting?
So the reason why we want to keep kittens out of the shelter is because they are an incredibly fragile population of cats. And by that, I mean, they have very weak immune systems and they need around the clock care that oftentimes staff at shelters just don't have the bandwidth to provide. So whenever we can keep them out of the shelter, that's usually what's going to be best for that kitten and for that litter of kittens.
Finders aren't the only people who can foster neonates, right? What can individuals do who may be interested in helping kittens, but they haven't found any themselves?
So I would recommend reaching out to your local shelter and offering to become a foster parent for neonates. No matter where you live, it is always a big need, and you will really be helping the shelter and helping to save that population of kittens by stepping forward for your community in that way.
For a shelter that wants to do the best cat life-saving programs for their community, what are the top 3 things they need to be doing?
I would say first, return to field. So the cats that are coming into the shelter as strays, we are, as long as they're eligible, we're getting them fixed, we're getting them vaccinated, and we're putting them back where we found them. And along with that, we can do micro-targeted TNVR. So again, cats that are being brought into the shelter that we know that there's a high number of intakes coming in from that same address, we're getting all of those cats fixed as well. And we're using our resources to fix those cats. Then I would say kitten intake diversion or prevention. So preventing kittens that don't really need our services from coming into the shelter in the first place. And finally, for the cats that are in our shelter awaiting adoption services, enrichment and handling techniques and programming that can really enrich their lives and de-stress their time while they're at the shelter and in the shelter environment is extremely important.
Leah, and how important is it to also address people who may not like cats running around in their neighborhoods?
Absolutely. Complaint mitigation is an important part of a community cat program. The word community is right there in the name, and we want to engage with all different community members. A lot of times complaints are the result of the cats not being fixed. So just by getting the cats fixed, we can help resolve them. And in cases where it isn't something related to spay and neuter, we can help by providing information about deterrence or deterrents themselves to help mitigate these concerns within the community and make sure that everyone is happy, the caregivers, the cats, and the complainants too.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here, and thanks for all the great work you're doing to help our shelter partners and to help cats and kittens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll leave links to more information for both individuals and shelters who want to help save more cats. And if you care about kittens, please remember to hit like and subscribe, because together we can save them all.